Zara held the watch closer to her eyes, turning it slowly in her hand. The crack in the glass caught the light for a moment, thin but impossible to miss. "It wasn't like this before," she said quietly. "It broke when we changed something." Ayaan stood beside her, still breathing hard from the shock of time restarting. "But we saved her," he said. "That little girl would have been dead." "I know," Zara replied. "I'm not saying we did the wrong thing. I'm saying—" The watch noticed. Ayaan frowned, shaking his head. "It's just a watch." Zara looked at him, her gaze firm. "No," she said. "It's not." They started walking home. The street looked normal again, noisy and alive, but Zara couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply off. People laughed, cars passed by, and shopkeepers shouted their daily greetings, but it all felt slightly delayed, like sound following pictures a second too late. It was an echo of a world that wasn't quite real anymore. "Zara," Ayaan said suddenly, slowing his pace. "Do you hear that?" She stopped, listening intently. The sounds of the city washed over her, but underneath it all— "Hear what?" she asked. "The ticking," he said, his voice laced with unease. "It's louder." Zara raised the watch to her ear. The familiar, steady rhythm was gone. Now, the ticking was erratic. Sometimes it skipped a beat, sometimes it doubled up, a frantic, stuttering pulse as if it couldn't decide how fast time should move. It was the sound of a broken clock, and Zara feared it was a sound that would break their world. "That's not good," she murmured, her stomach twisting into a knot. When they got home, the unsettling feeling followed them through the door. They found Amy in the kitchen, standing perfectly still, staring at the stove. The gas flame was on, a blue ring of fire dancing in the air, but the pot sitting on top of it was completely empty. "Amy?" Zara asked gently, trying to keep the alarm out of her voice. "What are you doing?" Amy blinked, as if waking from a deep dream. "Oh," she said slowly, her voice distant. I forgot what I was making." Ayaan exchanged a quick worried glance with Zara. "You never forget," he whispered, his eyes wide. Amy forced a weak smile. "My head feels strange today," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "Go wash your hands." Dinner will be ready soon, but Zara knew something was terribly wrong. In Ayaan's room, she closed the door behind them, shutting out the rest of the house. "You saw that, right?" she asked, her voice low and urgent. Ayaan nodded, his expression grim. "She froze," he said. "Just for a second, like a video buffering." Zara sank onto the edge of his bed, the weight of it all pressing down on her. "Time isn't just remembering what we changed," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's leaking. It's breaking apart, and it's taking people with it." Ayaan hugged his knees to his chest, making himself small. "Then let's never use it again. We'll lock it away. Forget we ever found it." As if in response, the watch on Zara's wrist ticked louder, an almost angry, insistent beat. She stared down at it, the metal feeling cold against her skin. What if it doesn't give us a choice? That night, sleep offered no escape. Ayaan woke up suddenly, the room shrouded in darkness. He could hear whispering, not clear voices, but a jumble of overlapping echoes, like ghosts trapped in a recording. "Ayaan," Zara said softly from the other bed. Her voice cut through the noise. "You're awake too? You hear it?" he asked, his own voice tight with fear. She nodded, though he could barely see her in the gloom. The watch. The frantic ticking had transformed into a low, resonant hum, vibrating through the very air in the room. Zara reached for the watch on her nightstand, her instincts telling her to silence it. The moment her fingers touched the cool metal, the room went silent, too silent. The kind of silence that swallows sound, that presses in on your ears. Zara sat bolt upright. "Ayaan," she whispered, her voice sounding strange and loud in the absolute stillness. "Don't move." He tried to answer, to ask what was happening, but no sound came out. He opened his mouth, but the words were stolen from him. Zara's heart began to race. She looked around the room, her eyes darting from one object to another. The ceiling fan above them was still, its blades frozen mid-spin. The curtains, which had been swaying gently in the night breeze, hung perfectly motionless. Everything was locked in place. No, she breathed. The single word, a puff of air in the frozen world. I didn't turn it. I didn't do this. She looked down at her hand. The crown of the watch, the tiny knob used to set the time, had twisted all on its own. Ayaan, she shouted, but the sound was trapped in her throat, unable to reach him. He couldn't hear her. She saw his mouth moving, saw the sheer panic in his eyes, but the world between them was a solid, silent wall. Zara jumped off the bed and ran to the door, her bare feet making no sound on the floor. She yanked it open. The entire house was frozen. Amy stood in the hallway, one foot raised in the middle of a step, her hand reaching for a light switch. In the living room, Abu's phone was mid-ring, the screen glowing silently, a call from a world that had stopped moving. "This isn't 10 minutes," Zara whispered, the horror of the situation dawning on her. "This isn't controlled." "It's broken." The watch in her hand began to burn, a phantom heat spreading up her arm. And then a voice filled the air. It wasn't coming from anywhere in the room. It was closer, almost inside her own head. "Cold and ancient. Second change," it said. Zara shook her head violently, as if to dislodge the sound. "We didn't change anything," she said aloud, her voice trembling. "You did this." The voice paused, a moment of consideration in the frozen time. "Time reacts," it replied. "Time corrects." "Corrects what?" Zara demanded, her fear turning to anger. Suddenly, the face of the watch flickered. It no longer showed numbers or hands. It showed images. Moving pictures playing out in the tiny circle of glass. She saw the street. The little girl running after her ball, the car speeding towards her. Then she saw another version of the event. The girl was safe pulled back from the curb by her mother, but just a few feet away. A man carrying groceries tripped on nothing, falling hard into the road, right into the path of another car. Zara's breath caught in her throat. "Every time we save someone," she whispered in sickening realization, "someone else gets hurt." The voice didn't deny it. The silence was its confirmation. Zara ran back to Ayaan. He was still frozen, a statue of terror. She grabbed his shoulders, shaking him, even though she knew it was useless. "Listen to me," she said, her voice desperate. "I won't let it take you. I won't let anything happen to you." The watch vibrated violently in her hand, the sensation jarring. More cracks spread across the glass, like a spiderweb growing from the center. "Zara," Ayaan mouthed silently, tears now slipping down his face, frozen on his cheeks. "I'm here," she said, her own voice shaking with unshed tears. "I'm not leaving you." The humming grew unbearable, a physical pressure building in her chest, like time itself was pushing back against her, trying to crush her. "Choose," the voice commanded inside her head. "Choose what?" Zara screamed into the silence. "Undo the change," the voice replied, "or lose the control." The ultimatum hit her like a physical blow. She fell to her knees, the watch clutched in her hand. "If I undo it," she said, the words tearing at her throat, "that girl dies." Balance must return. Zara looked at her brother, frozen, helpless, a prisoner in his own body because of a choice she had made. Her hands trembled as she held the device that was destroying them. "You're cruel," she whispered. "Time is fair," the voice corrected, its tone devoid of any emotion. Zara closed her eyes, shutting out the sight of her terrified brother. She made a decision. "Then take the price from me," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Not him. Not her. Me." The watch went completely silent. The humming stopped. The burning sensation vanished. For one terrifying moment, Zara thought everything had ended. That this was it. That time had stopped forever. Then sound crashed back into the world like a tidal wave. Ayaan gasped, sucking in a huge breath. The fan whirred to life overhead. From the hallway, Amy shouted, "Zara? Ayaan? Why did the lights flicker?" Zara collapsed onto the floor, breathing in ragged gulps, her body trembling with adrenaline and relief. Ayaan was immediately by her side, kneeling beside her. "Zara," he said urgently, his voice hoarse. "I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I thought—" She pulled him into a tight, fierce hug, burying her face in his shoulder. "It's okay," she said, though her voice broke on the words. "I've got you." "It's okay." He pulled back after a moment, his eyes finding the watch still clutched in her hand. "The watch," he said. "Look." Slowly, her hand shaking, Zara raised it. The crack in the glass was bigger now, a jagged line splitting the face in two, and beneath the glass, something new had appeared. One of the images she had seen was now burned into the metal dial. The little girl, safe and sound, but next to her was another shadow, a silhouette etched into the watch face, a shadow that looked exactly like Ayaan. Zara's blood ran cold. The price dot, it hadn't taken the man in the street. It had marked her brother. "This isn't just about changing time anymore," she whispered, the horrifying truth settling in her heart. Ayaan swallowed hard, his gaze fixed on the shadow that wore his shape. "Zara," he asked quietly, his voice barely audible, "why do I feel like the watch is watching me?" The ticking started again, but it wasn't frantic or broken anymore. It was slower, heavier. Each tick was a deliberate, final sound, as if it were counting down to something much, much worse.